Hello students, welcome to today's lesson where we will explore the different categories that data can be split into. By understanding these categories, you will be better equipped to describe and analyze data effectively. The plan for today's lesson is as follows. First, we will clarify what data actually is. Next, we'll discuss the different categories that data can fit into to describe it further. We'll look at discrete and continuous data. Moving forward, we'll identify the difference between primary and secondary data. By the end of this lesson, you'll have a solid understanding of how data can be categorized and why this is important for any statistical analysis you undertake. So let's dive in and start exploring the different types of data categories. First, let's clarify what data actually is. Data is a collection of information recorded for statistical purposes. This could range from responses to a survey or experimental results to additional information about the sample like age and gender. Essentially, data is any set of information that can be analyzed to help us understand patterns, trends, or behaviors. Did you know that data collection goes back to ancient times? Merchants and traders used to keep records on clay tablets to track their transactions. These early records helped them manage their business dealings and are some of the first examples of data collection. It's amazing to think that our modern data practices have roots in these ancient methods. Now let's discuss the categories that data can fit into to describe it further. We'll start with defining discrete data and continuous data. Discrete data involves data with specific values. These are countable values that cannot be subdivided meaningfully. Examples of discrete data include shoe sizes, the number of students in a class, or favorite colors. You can think of discrete data as data points that you can list out individually. On the other hand, continuous data can take any value within a given range and always has the potential for more specificity. Examples of continuous data include height, weight, and time. For instance, you can measure your height to the nearest centimeter, millimeter, and so on. Next, we'll identify the difference between primary data and secondary data. Primary data is gathered by the researcher directly. This includes data collected through surveys, experiments, or measurements taken by the researcher themselves. The main advantage of primary data is that it is specific to the researcher's needs and is up to date. However, it can be time-consuming and expensive to collect. Secondary data, on the other hand, is data that has been collected by someone else for a different purpose. Researchers use this data for their own work. Examples of secondary data include census data, data from academic journals, and information from government reports. The advantage of secondary data is that it is generally easier and cheaper to obtain. However, it may not be as specific or as up-to-date as primary data. By understanding these categories, you will be better equipped to describe and analyze data effectively. This knowledge is crucial for any statistical analysis you undertake, as it helps you choose the right methods and tools for your data. Let's now move on to some examples. Let's consider a simple problem to start with. Suppose we are given the ages of students in a class. Try to determine whether this data is discrete or continuous. You can easily count the number of students of each age. The ages are specific values that we can count and list individually, so this is an example of discrete data. Let's look at another example. Imagine we are recording the heights of students in the same class. The heights are 155.2 centimeters, 160.5 centimeters, and so on. We want to determine if this data is continuous or discrete. As it is not possible to list out all possible heights within a range, say 150 centimeters to 160 centimeters. This is because heights can take any value within the range and can be measured to more precise values, for example, to the nearest millimeter. This is precisely what continuous data is. Now let's discuss primary and secondary data with a practical example. In our lesson on sampling and populations, we looked at investigating how much time students spend on homework each week. In this example, think about how primary data will differ from secondary data. If you conduct a survey yourself by asking each student directly and recording their responses, you are collecting primary data. It is specific to your research question and is up to date. On the other hand, if you use data from a government report that provides average homework times for students in your country, you are using secondary data. This data was collected by someone else and for a different purpose, but you can still use it for your analysis. While it might be easier to obtain, it may not be as specific to your class or as current. In these walkthroughs, we practiced identifying whether data is discrete or continuous and distinguishing between primary and secondary data. By working through these examples, you should now be more comfortable categorizing data and understanding its implications for analysis. Keep practicing with different datasets to reinforce these concepts. In today's lesson, we delved into the concept of data and how it can be categorized to better understand and analyze it. We first defined data as a collection of information recorded for statistical purposes, which can help us understand patterns, trends, or behaviors. We then explored two main types of data: discrete and continuous. Discrete data consists of countable values that cannot be meaningfully subdivided, such as shoe sizes or the number of students in a class. Continuous data, however, can take any value within a given range and can be measured to an arbitrary precision, such as height, weight, or time. We differentiated between primary and secondary data. Primary data is collected directly by the researcher through surveys, experiments, or measurements, offering specificity and up-to-date information, but often requiring more resources to gather. Secondary data is collected by someone else for a different purpose and includes sources like census data or academic journals. It is generally easier and cheaper to obtain, but may not be as specific or current. By understanding these distinctions, you will be better prepared to describe and analyze data effectively, allowing you to choose the appropriate methods and tools for your statistical analysis.